We work on 18th and 19th century structures, mainly interiors, and we do traditional finishes. We also do consolidation of the substrates, and doing what we're doing here is fixing plaster, and this is 18th century plaster in the attic where we're at right now. And pretty much we've been doing this for the past 15 years, and this is just one of many of the great structures. Unfortunately, I'm from Massachusetts, but we're down in Virginia all the time because there's a lot of old plantation houses, a lot of 18th century structures still surviving. We have plenty up north, but it seems to focus down here in this area, in DC and Virginia. When you consolidate plaster, when it's failing, it can fail in a number of ways, and usually it's when the keys break, and the keys are, the lath is keyed into the plaster, and that's what holds it as a structural. That's the armature that it's just literally hanging on that. And what happens through vibrations over the years, it's brittle and it cracks and breaks, and then it starts to sag. And so depending on what that is, but you want to consolidate it with something very like material. You don't want anything that's going to be structurally more strong or more adhesive than the original material. And this material changes over time, so sometimes it becomes more brittle, more friable, and less intact than it was. So you have to tailor how you consolidate it to the conditions that it's in. And ideally, we just want it to be sound and have the structural integrity to maintain itself.
Yeah, I'll take that here. There you go.
So here we are. We are in the north side attic at Cloverfields, and you can see in the back here is one of the fireplaces, one of the many fireplaces here. But what we're working on here is the reverse of the attic ceiling that we were looking at earlier. And so what we're doing here is assessing, first of all, like how these keys are intact. And you can see all of these keys along here. When I say keys, it's where the mortar is coming out over the lath area, which holds the ceiling. And we're using a grout material that's lime-based to restructure these keys here. And you can see where we applied it here. So first of all, we had to get all of this copious amounts of dirt out of it, and we had to clean it very carefully and fortify this old plaster because it's very friable with a product that makes it a little harder. It's less friable and less brittle. And we do that 3 passes of HTC, but it's a Persoco product. And then there is a finishing rinse on top of that, and then we apply the grout material. And you can see we're going along anywhere that is potentially broken. So like you could see, this area here is stable now that it's fixed, but all of these were cracked and moved. And that means that the plaster was no longer supported by the key itself. And so we're supporting it with this other building these keys out further and making them bigger and stronger and fixing any repaired or any cracks. There was just a lot more work on these ceilings. And then, of course, Willie went further down, and we started in the smoke areas. We're going to consolidate everything. We're trying to save as much as we can here. So we have to go and assess those as well. And that's completely different because that plaster had been exposed to entirely different conditions that this plaster has. So we'll have to assess that, and it might be a different treatment altogether. Every job you have to really be careful coming in and really look at it closely. And the more time you spend with this material, the more you know in every structure. So you have to learn. There's a learning curve to it. Again, we do traditional finishes. So all of this would be in preparation for us to do finishes. And when I mean traditional finishes, we make them based on what's found in the analysis. And we make them, if it's an 18th century house, we make it as they would in the 18th century. So we hand grind pigments into linseed oil if it's oil paints, if it's lime washes, we slake the lime, we get the lime, make lime wash, and if there's any pigment in it, we match the same pigments that we find in analysis. So we put it back the way as best we can. The whole point is to get into the finish. So we're the finishers, so we're hopefully the last person here and walk out the door and try to put it back as it was.